this Wednesday, March 19th. To begin, first of all, I'd like to introduce to the board Kim Meacham. Beecham, excuse me. She is going to kind of fill in and be handling all the correspondence going back and forth to all the board members about meetings and that type of thing that Sally was doing before. So she's going to be providing some support there. So we look forward to working with you, and we'll be corresponding and everything. Okay, good. Hey, Brent, that's funny. Good deal. Okay, so first order of business, and I'll give you a little update. You might have saw that there was going to be a public comment period, but in my chair report, I'll tell you about that little situation. They won't be here tonight dealing with the Rotary Wheel Garden, but I'll explain that a little bit later. So first order of business, hopefully, is to approve the meeting, the minutes from the January 15th meeting. And first of all, thank you to Amy for February allowing us to, bail on that weather night. Yeah, it was quite horrible. So anyway, any comments on the minutes from January 15th of this year? Corrections? If none, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
By Zach, a second.
A second.
Second by Franklin. All in favor? Aye. Okay, passes. Okay. Old business. At our last meeting, Amy kind of gave us a review of the Parks and Rec cost recovery policy and fee schedule. It was something that the staff really feels like they needed to kind of update. And if I remember right, Amy, it seemed like you said that we were at about 19%, as far as our cost recovery, which was way below national average and everything.
Wait a little bit.
Okay.
Thanks for the intro.
Yeah.
So as a reminder, in January, I did a high-level overview of a study that was completed. Coming down the rabbit hole to find us.
Such a barrier to performance. Been here.
So we're just on the first.
A sign in?
Yes, ma'am.
I do have copies here.
The first item in old business, if everybody recalls, I did a high-level overview in January
Oh, here, the pen too.
of a pending cost recovery draft policy for Parks and Recreation. And this is a recommendation both in the Parks Recreation and Open Space Comp Plan that we completed 2 years ago. And then this past year, the city completed a study through a consultant called MGT, who did an analysis of the Parks and Recreation's program expenditures and fee schedule, and did an analysis and developed cost recovery options and with a draft policy document. And it really centers around not a new philosophy at all, but a philosophy that's been around in Parks and Rec agencies for 25 years. And that is a tiered categorization of programs. And there's varying models, but they generally are between, 4 to 6 tiers that range from community-wide benefit all the way to the top tier of individual benefit. And with the concept being that the community-wide benefit should be supported most heavily by the general taxpayer. And as you move up, as a healthy organization would, and begins to offer more diverse program and more individualized programming, that begins to rely more on the individual user and less on the taxpayer. So the MGT study was presented to City Council at their November 7th work session. And they recommended that the department proceed with developing a cost recovery policy draft to be adopted correspondingly with the fiscal year 26 budget that's based on the recommendations, both going back to the comp plan and the MGT study. So with that, y'all had received and saw the draft policy at your January meeting. It was sent out to you again. But basically it does center around the recognition that not all services can continue to be completely borne through general fund revenues and taxpayer use, but that as you move out through the organization, or as the organization moves up into a healthier, more diverse agency, that you expand on the programming and then in turn rely on more of a user fee structure. So nationwide, the general target for cost recovery in Parks and Recreation is around 25%. The study found that Wilmington Parks and Rec is around 19%. Although I will say that the Greenville Lake Amphitheater and Live Oak Bank Pavilion were not calculated into that 19%. Just basic, if I was in court, I could argue both sides of this, both points of view. They are outliers for sure. They both concepts were born in Parks and Recreation, have been managed in Parks and Recreation. They are Parks and Recreation programs through and through. However, they are large-scale performance venues, and especially with Live Oak Bank Pavilion, really an economic development project. And because their cost recovery is so great, it throws off the average a little bit. So we threw that out.
So is the golf course included or
The
excluded?
golf course was excluded because it operates as an enterprise fund. So it's completely, with the exception of some loans and grants for large-scale capital projects, it's completely reliant on users to pay for. So Inland Greens was included because that's not an enterprise fund. That's part of Parks and Recreation Ops Fund, but Muni was excluded. So already without, we have worked hard over the years, especially beginning like in the mid-2000s, to adopt the philosophy of trying to move more to a user-based system to the extent that we can, especially if it is a program that's offered in the private sector. Obviously, there are some things such as special needs programming, Special Olympics, community centers that are not competing in the market, and you're going to find those at the bottom tier, the community benefit. And then as you get higher, those things like golf course fees are going to be at the individual benefit. So the draft policy that you have in front of you has the city adopting the 5 tiers. Again, every city is a little bit different. There's lots of North Carolina PNR agencies that already have these adopted. They're a little bit different, but the concept is the same. So we have tier 1 community benefit. And if you want to think of community benefit, they're like parks, greenways, playgrounds, athletic fields, the basic infrastructure that any city would really want to have to serve the basic needs of a city to make it a livable community. And moving into tier 2 is considerable community benefit. So when we think of that, we think of things like community center programming, youth athletic leagues, active older adult programming, things like that. Tier 3 is balanced community and individual benefit. And those are things like athletic leagues, like adult athletic leagues, camps, and community events, special events, citywide, July 4th type of things. And then tier 4 would be considerable individual benefit. Those are things that not everybody in the community is going to take advantage of, like tennis lessons, fitness classes, the fitness center that the city offers, and cultural programs, things of that nature. And then the last tier is complete individual benefit, and we would put golf course greens fees in that category. We would put food and beverage concessions in that category. and entertainment events, such as our performance venues in that category. Along with our request of city council to adopt this draft policy is to get their blessing to have an accompanying fee assistance program with it. We already in our fee schedule have sort of an ad hoc or hodgepodge selection of scholarships or, fee assistance for programs here and there for people who want to take advantage of our programs but can't necessarily afford it. This would consolidate all of that into one comprehensive program. We benchmarked 9 different cities for a fee assistance program. The one that we've chosen to model most closely after is Raleigh's. And we really designed it for simplicity of use by the individuals and their families and simplicity for city staff to be able to implement it and track it. You're dealing with people's sensitive financial information. It's something that you have to renew every year. There's lots of moving pieces to it. So we wanted it to be as simplified as possible. But basically, if a family is below 60% AMI, average medium income, and that's also categorized as very low income between 30 and 60%, then you're eligible for this program. Or if you receive Social Security, disability, Medicaid, then you're eligible for the program. And so every time, or if you want to try to qualify for this program, you register for it once. You can register for it online or in person. Then you're in the system. We'll be prompted every July 1st to reimburse. And you'll receive 50% off of the advertised cost of the program. The things that are included in the fee assistance program are all of our youth and adult programming, camps. Things that are not included in the fee assistance program are facility rentals or facility memberships.
Price to an entertainment at Live Oak cannot propose.
No, you cannot, but I will say that there's plenty of local organizations that have access to tickets who can, buy tickets, for kids, say, I don't know, Glow Academy or something. There's every locale does that, but yeah, somebody like a Live Nation or any other caliber of corporate venue manager, they're not going to be able to structure anything like that from a ticketing standpoint. So they would rely on local organizations to purchase tickets and see what they see fit. Yeah.
So 2 questions. One, how far are we away from these target, cost recoveries? And is that something, is there going to be culture shock? Is that going to be over a couple of years to get it there? Or, kind of what's the thought?
Yeah, it would be over a couple of years. It is really not any culture shock.
Mhm.
We have made recommended changes to the fee schedule. They're not out of balance of anything that we've done in the past. We're going up, a couple dollars here or there on inland greens fees, for example, tennis tournament fees. Trying to think, the fitness center and Fit for Fun going up $1 or $2. But again, just to try to begin to achieve that 25% average. Again, we're at 19, so we don't have far to get there. I was gonna say something else that went right out of my head. Somebody asked me another question.
At the same time, you're almost just keeping up with inflation though. Yeah, those prices in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so we, because this study was taking place this past year, we were asked not to submit any fee schedule changes with the FY 25 budget that we're in right now. So yeah, we missed 1 year and typically we raise some year. So yeah, so we missed a year. So not anything out of the norm. It's more just having a policy that's adopted. It's really a lot of what we're already doing, but codifying it.
So will these tiers, will they be line items like, or in your budget, or how are we tracking that as far as how we're?
Line items, and that's a great question. Instead, it's really not feasible to analyze every single program that we have and categorize them, so, or put them in a tier.
Uh-huh.
That's why we develop broad categories, so that we have the flexibility to adapt and change from year to year if we need to.
So I have a couple of technical questions too. So if you're talking about a community benefit, let's say the MLK Center, and you're going to have I know somebody in here really likes pickleball lessons. Well, that obviously MLK falls under tier 1, but the pickleball lessons fall under tier 5. Right? So that's gonna be,
There is some vagary to it, and that's necessary, but it's a good question. So for example, the Althea Gibson Tennis Complex is a tier 3. Because there are clinics and lessons and camps that are offered there. If it was just a standalone tennis court, like at Robert Strange Park, which is next to the MLK Center, but it's not programmed by the MLK Center. It's just, we have lots of tennis courts that are at parks that aren't part of a
right,
programmed area. So that's a tier 2,
right.
Althea Gibson, if I want to go out and play tennis tonight after this and I walk onto the court, I'm using that as a tier 2.
Right.
But if I'm signing up for lessons or a tournament or something like that, then you're moving into a tier 3, and that's where we want to recover.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is it's okay for MLK to have that pickleball lesson. They would recover the cost for the pickleball
Yes.
lesson, but
Sure.
not necessarily doesn't turn MLK into another type of facility or another tier. Okay, yeah.
You can get those lessons free through the pickleball. Take green.
Why did you use that as an example?
So, and then the other thing this isn't the actual policy, or will this become
That
your
would be
actual?
turned into the actual policy.
Okay. So under service cost, it's not confusing, but it's maybe a little vague to me. Service cost shall endeavor to consistently include costs directly associated with running a program, which are specific identifiable expenses, as well as direct costs such as admin costs. But what about indirect costs, such as the cost of the building and the cost of the utilities and the cost of the maintenance? And so those aren't going to be calculated in.
No, those will, and this is also a great question. So the consultant's study did not delve into our actual program costs. So this is a first step, and in the presentation that I'll give to council, it will make note of that this is just the first step in us aligning with what's been recommended in the study. But there was not a deep dive into our program costs. So we do want to, moving forward, achieve not just what it costs, that staff person's time, the material and equipment, but what it did cost to use
The
the
utility.
building and administrative costs above that. Indirect costs that will not be captured are, if there's a tennis tournament at Althea Gibson, that's a region-wide tournament and people are coming and spending the night here, and there's an indirect economic impact. That's not included.
Right.
But to the extent, and that's why it says endeavor, that we can capture all the direct costs, we will try and do that. Are we gonna get there with every program? I mean, we have hundreds of programs.
I would just be really concerned about the indirect cost and how deep you try to dive that down, because it can just, you don't want to send the staff into a loop of constantly having to figure out, okay, well, how much the utility cost for 3 hours of.
No, we would want to sort of make this a one-time exercise and then make it applicable going forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Isn't there some kind of, you're the accountant, that some kind of line in enterprise finance, not municipal, but property, plant and equipment, kind
Sure.
of fixed.
Yeah,
And then your variable revenue and or expenses are a different part of the budget, but obviously property, plant, and equipment for every facility in under the jurisdiction of Parks and Rec, just being a simple line item, and it's fixed but I mean, I don't know if you had any stuff.
well, yeah, but I mean, you gotta be a little careful because you kind of said an enterprise fund, and that's completely different, because that's a self-sustaining thing where they're basically showing a revenue and expense that's similar for a for-profit and everything, where this is, kind of a little bit different.
I guess that's the way to put it, is that we're going to try to get as close to the actual cost of the program as possible.
Do we have any recurring data going back, say 24, 23 of the actual costs that we're trying to recoup?
We have again, the study identified,
Study, but it just in general. that we
well, I mean, the study looked at what we have,
Okay.
what the city has in our budgeting and our accounting, and that's how, they use that
Yeah.
to,
It's a snapshot in
Okay.
time.
that's a good way to put it.
What it all costs.
Is that public?
Was that
record?
last year?
I mean, it's in our accounting enterprise system.
Is it-
It's not in any sort of public report, like an easily to,
Yeah.
a document that's easily distributed.
So, and kind of going back and talking about these indirect costs, where is that like just support and maintenance, insurance, utilities for all these buildings in your budget? How is that put into your current budget, all those expenses and?
So we pay for all of our utilities.
Right, yeah.
For every site that we have. We do not have to pay for example, HVAC replacement.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
in another department,
Okay.
but all of that is easily distinguishable in terms of what department is responsible for what. So we know what we're paying for in our budget.
Does building maintenance come out of your excluding?
Depends what you mean by
repair-
building maintenance.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
So we
Like
pay
repair,
for
replacement.
some janitorial costs,
Uh-huh.
so we pay that, building maintenance, but in terms of building envelope and building systems maintenance,
No.
we don't pay for that, Public Works
Window
does.
replacement, no.
Right, so if it's like building systems, building envelope,
Mhm.
walls, ceilings, mechanical, electrical, plumbing,
A different
That's our
policy. So that wouldn't be included in this.
Yeah, ma'am.
And just thinking, getting back to the budget, so I know y'all are working on the budget, if it's not already finalized for this year coming up. But will you work, say, okay, hey, the target for tier 3 is what, between 75 or 30 to 70%. Well, this year, we're going to try and target 50%. Was there any kind of thought process for those type of things when you're doing your budget for 26?
So again, we have made fee schedule change requests and they're based on the tiers and trying to move from that 19 to that 25%.
Good.
That stretch goals, stretch fees.
Yeah.
Do we have any data if we did add back Greenfield Lake and Live Oak, what percentage we would be?
The cost recovery? Yeah, I don't have that with me tonight, but that's easily, I mean, I have the revenue,
Yeah.
I have our budget. I'm not gonna guess a number, but
Yeah.
I
Significant.
it's significant, but it would,
Get us closer to 25.
Okay.
Is that just the dollar that you get back per ticket that you're counting? Or
so
they're
we
counting their
we get fixed rent from Live Nation at both facilities. So that's revenue that goes directly to the general fund that we would count. And then we also get ticket fee.
Right.
And so that is direct revenue that we would count.
You would just count the ticket fee, not the rental fee
No, we would count all of it.
that goes to the general fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does maintenance of those facilities come from our bucket?
The day-to-day maintenance is the responsibility of Live Nation, and responsible for any repairs or replacement up to $5,000 per occurrence, and then we're responsible for anything over that.
And we do landscape and grounds.
They pay for irrigation. So we'll be presenting this at City Council's next budget work session, March 28th. And then again, as we move to budget adoption in June, we'll ask for City Council to formally adopt the.
So tonight, do you need a motion in support of this budget to present to city council?
We're requesting
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
either
sure.
support or.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions for Amy or staff? If not, I'd like to hear a motion on the floor in support of the cost recovery policy that has been presented to be brought before city council.
So moved.
So moved by Joe, second.
Second.
Second by Ingrid. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Amy. Okay. So next, finally, we're getting to our work plan workshop, which we did last year and we have a copy of. I'm gonna turn this over to Sally because I don't have a clue of how this works.
Got you covered. Let me just share my screen here and then I'm just gonna run through as an introduction for you. Super. All right, so in 2023, this board adopted a work plan. And it has served as the guide for the board over the last couple of years. So typically, we like to renew these every year or two. I'm going to suggest that we do a 2-year plan so that you can kind of sink your teeth into it and accomplish some of your goals. I just wanted to briefly go over the plan that was adopted a couple of years ago. So really what we did is considered the role of the board. We looked at our guiding documents, the bylaws, which have been updated as of last year through an ad hoc committee of this board. And also the Parks and Recreation Open Space Comprehensive Plan. Of course, there's 11 members, 3-year terms. You all know this. And currently, there's just one committee that's active. That's the Parks and Greenway Committee. The ad hoc committee for the bylaws was dissolved when those bylaws were adopted by council. There's a win.
Good job.
There's a win. Annual items, of course, elect the chair and vice chair, and that's coming in May. So we have folks who are interested in those roles. Please keep that in mind. Of course, adopting the work plan, maintaining your membership, which y'all are doing a great job with. Some of the things that were on this plan were reviewing and adopting master plans. The Greenfield Lake Master Plan was a tremendous accomplishment, as well as the Urban Forest Master Plan, 2 really important documents for the department. And then also an alcohol license review and approval at Muni Golf Course. The board had requested at that time to learn more about the department. So we introduced monthly staff updates about their service areas and their programs. So we had presentations from several folks, including the park ranger, our events coordinator, Davina Bell, Jonathan Batts for Inland Greens. I did one at the end of the year. There were some dedications. Not all of these have happened. We still have some of these that are, we're looking forward to completing.
Which ones haven't been done? Just
Let's see.
Riverfront Park?
Bradley Creek, kayak launch is still in the works. The Encino Sports Complex, as you know.
That's done.
That's done. MLK is almost done. We're just probably a couple months away from that ribbon cutting. That's sort of been on hold, this trail parking.
Yeah, that is not a project
it may have been dissolved. And then Olson Park Phase 2, we're hoping to break ground here in the next couple of months as well. So still some coming online that we're excited about. I talked about the two committees and their work plans in this. And I think, you know, you can check the box for the bylaws and then this Adopt a Park program. We have had feedback at most of our meetings from board members who are visiting those parks and bringing back their stories and also providing some great feedback for maintenance to make improvements. And we've been able to put those into play. Those priorities also included a mentorship program, which I think didn't quite continue on there.
How are you doing, Paul? I'm your mentor.
Oh,
I don't have a mentor.
I'll be your mentor too.
So maybe that's something we can put on our list today. Of course, public awareness. And then all of this was based off a SWOT exercise that we did where we looked at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what I'm proposing for us to do today is just start this process of putting your new work plan, bringing your new work plan to life. So everyone has received one of these. Actually, you can pass them around if you don't have one. It's just one page. Does anybody have any questions about the old work plan before I kind of walk you through the plan to develop the new one?
Moving things that weren't accomplished, will we be moving things that weren't accomplished on this plan to the new one?
That is absolutely your prerogative. I think there's good stuff there. All right, so the general plan here is to go through a strength and weaknesses exercise as well. But today, really, the idea is to do a coat of arms exercise, which I'll tell you more about in a minute. And then a challenges and opportunities activity. So that will be today. And we'll just get as far as we can because we want this to be a robust conversation that you're all involved in and feel like your voices are being heard. In April, we're inviting our strategic plan manager to go over the city's strategic plan. And we can also review our business plan, Parks and Recreation Department business plan. And then also on that day, we'll kind of do phase 2 of taking those opportunities and threats those opportunities and strengths.
No threats.
And just doing an exercise where we use some green dots and prioritize the things that you talked about. So we can start building our goals, your goals. And then in May, we'll finalize those initiatives and develop some SMART goals. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Let's do the coat of arms exercise. So I want to pass you around. Amy and Kim, can you please do one too? I want you in there too. We're gonna Parks and Recreation. It's not my plan. All right, so each board member is going to create their own coat of arms addressing the following.
Thank you.
And those of you online, you can do it too.
Thanks.
So you're going to write down right in here, something that you're proud of. That's here. Can be professional, a skill or aptitude that you bring to the table for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Something positive that drew you to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and then something that you want to accomplish during our workshop and in the development of our work plan. And then at the bottom, you're going to put your words to live by. Be a quote, comment. So everybody about 5 or 6 minutes, go ahead and do that on your own.
Our words, live by the public record.
Can pause the video when we're done.
We're doing.
You have an extra pen, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I'm done. You can, I don't have an extra, but you can use that one.
Crayon.
Here, I'll let you.
Unfortunately.
Oh, somebody's pink pen here.
Please.
I don't want-
Gonna write it on the Sharpie.
Yeah.
Here's one more. Real pen. Yes, I should have brought back a pen. I have a couple of them. Whatever. I did. Sorry, Rhonda. Did you see it?
I see a bridge.
Okay, how
Now I
about
see
now?
the, yeah, now I see it.
What's up, Alexa?
For a minute there, I didn't think I could hear, but I hear you now.
Okay. Warm in here. Stopped.
But being so cold in the hall, I'm sure it'll be. It'll just out.
All right. Is everybody feeling about ready? Awesome. Well, I'll go first. What is something you're proud of this past year? I said working with our team on the fee study and the fee assistance program. It's really amazing that we can offer affordable programming for our community and find a way for folks who can afford it to have access to them. What is a skill you bring to the table? I have experience in the Parks and Recreation profession. What is something positive that made you interested in the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board? So other than my paycheck, I would say the value that we bring to the community as well as the natural environment. What is something you'd like to accomplish during this workshop? I would love to develop achievable action items. Achievable action items that help the board's ability to promote parks and recreation in the community. And words to live by, because I'm a tree nerd, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and the second best time is now.
Very good.
What's next?
We're gonna fall in a line.
I mean, you can if you want
I
to.
was gonna say go that way.
What is something that you're proud of in the past year? I have raising a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, so they keep me busy. And,
Yeah.
I've been, on Monday, I'll open a new convenience store that I've been remodeling,
Oh,
so
wow.
between the past 6 months,
Whoa.
between those, there are 2 things I've been working on. What's a skill you bring to the table? Just general property management, land management, like business management, just something I've done my whole life, like with my family, it's just something we've always done here in town. What's something positive that made you be interested in the Parks and Rec board? For me, it's just maintaining and maximizing green space, park availability, for kids in the next generation. You know, it's something I'd like to give my time to. And what's something you'd like to accomplish during this workshop? It's increasing youth access and participation in the parks and the sports programs primarily, anything we can do there. And really just get more kids outdoors in our community. I think it's a great place and not enough people utilize what we have. Just trying to make it more awareness, we know we can. And words to live by, a day is never wasted when spent out in nature. That's kind of how I've always felt. I kind of believe by that.
Nice.
That was excellent. I'm not going after that.
Only been 9.
Okay, something you're proud of the past year. Last summer, I was nominated and voted. I sit on the board of directors of the UNCW Seahawk Club. And
Oh, nice.
that was pretty, so that's something I've really enjoyed doing. I got to know a lot of the coaches and student athletes. Actually, I hired 2 student athletes. They working as interns for me right now. That's been a lot of fun. Skills you bring to the table, I don't know, ability to draw consensus and promote inclusion and hopefully try and give some order to our meetings. Something positive that made you interested? Well, obviously I had a lot of history. I was working on the Rotary Wheel Garden because of my Rotary Club, but I've always utilized a lot of the parks across City Trail, Greenfield Lake, just running and out there. So it just really brought my interest to try and, help and promote all the parks here. Something you'd like to accomplish during this workshop? Joe, find missed opportunities from last year, things we didn't get done, and then ways to support Bill Runstein next month to hear that the city and the Parks and Rec strategic plan, what those are, and then what we can do to try and support that. Words to live by, this is stolen, and only I was at a Rotary meeting and Judge Faison, was talking about leadership, but to paraphrase it, that's not what Wilmington can do for you, but what you can do for them.
All right, from day one, I announced that my goal was pickleball. It still remains that, so I'm really happy we were able as a group to pass that resolution. Y'all might know it was well over a year ago that happened. We did get what I would call, we didn't, but the city did do a favorable feasibility study that it's okay to do something out there in that vacant land at Empty Park. I think we spent a whole lot of money doing that. I have no idea what a feasibility study costs, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Yeah, whatever. That's a lot in my book, but that's okay. My skill is just an interest in pickleball. I love it. It's great. I think everybody ought to try it. It's just a nice social event. Everything is good for the body, the mind, and the soul. Why did I join this? It was because it was an avenue to try to promote that particular thing. I mean, I'm kind of the liaison between the Cape Fear Pickleball Club and the city and whatever, and so far it's going okay. Could move a little faster. My goal, it was from the day one, more public pickleball courts. We now have one dedicated pickleball court. That's Greenfield. That was just recently given to us by the city. It was a conversion from tennis courts. There are pickleball courts that you in here could play at, but I'd be willing to bet, well, I know you can't. If you're not a member of the pickleball club, you can't play there because you don't have a net. The pickleball club provides a net in every public facility. Pickleball club keeps those in a bin
there. You have to take it out, you have to set it up, put it up. But if you don't belong to the club, you can't open the bin, you can't play pickle. So only place to go if you want to go is Greenfield Lake. My goal, there's a beautiful tract of land at Impey Park. It's screaming, do something. And I understand if you can't fund it, you can't fund it. I mean, there's no, but if it can be dedicated as such, that can turn some other wheels with private investment or private people that can contribute to helping it be done. And so that's my goal, is just keep moving the wheels. And for the words that live by, just public pickle. You can see there's new ones going up and they're nice facilities, but pay to play, not in my world. There's too many potential for just public play pickleball. Next.
Ron's fervor about pickleball reminds me of Bill Walton once said about basketball, it's a higher life form. Looks like it is. Something I'm proud of in this past year, I stayed retired from practice despite temptations. And that worked out because my wife, as y'all know, came down with cancer. And the surgery at Duke was fantastic. Carolina grad, I nevertheless was impressed. If y'all ever run into the situation, a lot of times the surgery is fine. It's the radiation and or chemo that's toughest on the patient and the family. And that was our experience. We're just coming out of that. So that's something I'm proud of our family. It's not just Ashley and I, it's Ashley's family and my son. Everybody is involved when somebody gets cancer. She's gonna be okay. What's a skill to bring to the table? Well, I'm reasonably engaged. I spent, my profession was, as y'all know, psychiatry, so I know how to listen. And one advantage I think is, grew up in Monroe and everything, but I'm naive to Wilmington politics, and that I think clears the slate for any kind of controversy. Okay, something positive. When I moved here, the weather, and my love of biking, those two things made my interest in not just bike lanes, but parks with bike lanes and avenues. And so I'm totally impressed with the cross city bike path. If anybody's usually go out all the way out to Wrightsville, and that's a great east-west bike. We don't have a way. I argue the safe way. You can't ride on the side of Mesabur Loop Road. But once those easements in the master plan come through and they do pave it, I'm hoping there'll be a north-south way for cyclists to get to Carolina Beach. And of course, you always have to walk over Snow Cut Bridge, but that's okay if you can get down there more safely. And I know Carolina Beach Boulevard all the way to Carolina Beach, that last part's pretty wide and you can probably safely ride, but it'd be nice if we had apart from the highway, an easement driven bike lane, north-south. And so that's a specific thing. What would I like to accomplish? Get those easements going north-south so we can have a bike lane. Words to live by, start out a preacher actually, Thoreau once said that the great work lies not in the folks that we hire and we fire. The great work lies in the work we are. And that is nature and wildlife parks.
These are all hard to go after. I felt like I was responding to pageant questions. Okay, so for what is something you're proud of this past year, I do a lot of volunteer work with the Blue Ribbon Run, which is for colon cancer research, and the Azalea Festival. And I kind of thought that question was referring to Parks and Rec. So I said one of the best things with the Encino Park grand opening, I love a good ribbon cutting. As we all know, a skill I bring to the table. I am a Wilmington native and I love community involvement. So I find that sometimes helpful, maybe sometimes a hindrance, but something that positive that made me interested in the Parks and Rec Advisory Board were also updates on the Cross City Trail. And I would love more interconnectivity with schools and stores and everything, and safer crossings. I think that would be one of my biggest concerns, and something I would like to accomplish during this workshop. And I guess it's increased knowledge about what else everyone else would like to improve. So, and then my quote is from my dad, but it's very similar to yours. It's, the world is looking for people who can do things, not for those who make excuses for not doing them. That's Jean-Claude Corby.
Jean-Claude.
Not my board.
Yeah, yeah.
Not going there.
So, yeah, some of the things I'm proud of as far as accomplishments go the last year, is definitely just volunteering more. Ron sent me up at Good Shepherd and become more involved in the city and actually, putting the time in. Some of the ribbon cuttings I've seen you at, and groundbreakings, and I mean, that stuff's super important. It's taking a lot of hard work. So just go in there and being appreciative of all the hard work that did go into it. Personal stuff, I'm always proud of my kids. I have to be healthy family, so that's number one. And then, I broke ground on several new projects in downtown, so that's why I'm so tired right now. Skills bring to the table, just, I'm born and raised in Wilmington, got a lot of knowledge of the city, spent a lot of time running around, pretty much know all the little back roads and nooks and crannies. Understanding real estate development, we're in a big development cycle for the last few years and seeing how that affects our city and having some insight on how to keep it on track to keep it a beautiful, usable place to live. And use the parks weekly. Something positive that brought me into the Parks and Rec is just all of our mini parks and just the massive potential for them to be better. Mainly Greenfield Lake has always been close to home and heart. And just having a lake of that size in such close proximity to the density of downtown is pretty cool. What is something that you would like to accomplish during this workshop? To get the community more involved in the planning and use. I think there's a lot of things that I wasn't knowledgeable of before joining this, how everything worked. And as much as is going on, it's kind of hard to get that information. So trying to figure that out. And words to live by, I would never write a quote down because I will butcher it. So I'm just kind of keeping it to why we're all here and, just keeping the parks beautiful, well attended, loved is kind of why I'm here. Just kind of, let's stick to that.
That's great.
Building community with students, accomplishment for me this past year. Skill is parade judging. I'm excellent. Just think the understanding and appreciation of the value that recreation has on the individual, the community, nation state, every single level is where recreation is. It's one of the four central themes to any society that has ever existed. If you want to hear the fifth, it's off color. We'll have to wait till the mic's off, but I think that's important. I think what drew me was just service to community beyond my own sphere. Like a lot of us, I get locked into my little world. This was an opportunity to provide service with minimal effort, if being honest. It's not a heavy lift, and being able to do something that I knew would impact thousands of people directly and indirectly. And yes, that's selfish, but more importantly, it was a way to be able to use things. Something to get out of this, I want to have a renewed foundation of a path to success for our community with an emphasis on creation and well-being. And I think that pathway is planning, both strategic and more of the tactical plan of what are we doing in the immediacy. I think there's great opportunity there. And then we're just live by it, just be kind.
I'm Joe, and one of the things I'm most proud of this year is being appointed to this board. And also technically last year, I was appointed to something called the International Union of Conservation Nations, which is a big global think tank of people involved in parks and recreation and environmental conservation worldwide. So awesome. Very proud of that. Skill set I bring to the table. I'm a 40-year Parks and Recreation veteran. Specifically, most recently, I was involved in writing really multi-billion-dollar contracts for the National Park Service. So I have those skills in policy development and contracting. I was interested in becoming a part of this board. I lived in Wilmington in the 80s. I moved back in the 2000s. And I've been trying and wanting to be on this board ever since then. I just think parks and recreation and quality parks and recreation programs are like the cornerstone of the Maslow table of what's important in people's lives. And I want to make sure we provide as much significance to that as we can. Something I want to accomplish is learn more about what we can do to help the city and what the city needs from us. That's why I'm here. I'm not here for me. I'm here to help the city and then in turn, hopefully help the citizens. I'm also a 3.5 pickleball player and I love to bike, but I can't get out of my neighborhood on a bike without getting killed. So.
Neighborhood is.
I live in Montgomery Terrace off of Wrightsville Avenue. So you're immediately on Wrightsville Avenue and there's like the lane, the bike lane is all supposed bike lane, it's this wide. It's all covered with debris and so there's just. And so I believe in treating everybody with kindness and respect and don't sell your integrity because you can only do it once.
At least mine.
Doable.
But you don't get to keep it. At least me, so.
Rhonda?
Cameron?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Ish.
Okay. So, the thing I'm most proud of this year is finishing and submitting my thesis because I'm in the MFA program at UNCW. Thank you. It is a book about healing from brain injury by visiting trees, so it's appropriate. If you're interested in hearing part of it, I'm reading on campus tomorrow at 6:45. And it's in Morton Hall 100. If you're interested, I'll be there. The skill I bring obviously is writing. I also have a lot of knowledge about Live Oaks, connections at UNCW, and experience as a parent. So on the parent side, in dealing with a different parks and recreation program in Pennsylvania when my kids were little. Something that made me come to Parks and Rec is that I would like to help with programming and protecting trees and green space. Something I'd like to accomplish is a clear plan that allows me to be helpful. I am happiest on the planet when I can help and feel useful. So I would like that very much. And the quote I chose for the words to live by is, we need to remember what's important in life: friends, waffles, work, or waffles, friends, work, doesn't matter, but work is third. It's from Leslie from Parks and Rec. So.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for doing that exercise. I think it was a great opportunity for us to get to know each other a little bit better.
We still have Alexa.
Oh, wait.
I was about to say, unless you jumped off.
No, I don't see her. Alexa.
Yeah.
6:30 here is.
Just like that, out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is 6:30.
So obviously, I think we can stop here. If you want to just, that little last bit of the agenda, and then we can pick up on this, as we go along.
It is 6:30. The chair's report, I can bring you up to speed. Just real quick, this lady who's going to come speak is Margie Herring and her friend Patty Eshe. We're talking with them. She's president of the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees. And she's with this Nature at Work and is working with the Rotary Club for Inside the Wheel Garden to really rethink our plantings, trying to use more native species plants and that type of thing. And so the idea was that maybe that'll spill out in the grassy area outside there. So just presenting some ideas, but then looking at the Greenfield Lake Master Plan, all that grassy area is gonna become a parking lot if that comes through, and everything. So it wasn't, at least that was part of the plan, whether it happened. So it's probably since it's not really worth talking about it or sharing it with y'all. We still may be trying to do something inside there. So anyway, so that was it. One thing, the Fifth Avenue project is alive and well, and it's really working because I go to St. Mary's twice a week, and every time I go down, to turn on Fifth and there's a roadblock and I've got to go around. But yeah, but that is alive and it's working well. So real quick before we adjourn, anything else from board? Anybody want to bring up?
Can someone give us an update on what's going on with the Flossie Bryan property? I heard there was a,
I can tell you
That's
about
not,
this last night.
well,
Yeah.
that's not city, that's a county thing, right,
No.
Amy?
The Flossie Bryan tract is on Independence Boulevard,
Uh-huh.
just east of Carolina Beach Road. It is part of a court judgment.
Yeah.
So it was independently owned. When the owner passed away, she willed it to the county for green space. There was a lawsuit from several heirs, and there was a judgment on that lawsuit. And so this really inhibited the county from really moving forward with doing anything with it one way or another, because there'll be a financial settlement once it is either developed as a park or sold at market value or whatever's done with it. The next step will trigger that monetary settlement with the heirs. But I think just with the New Hanover endowment and some increased momentum by the endowments board and wanting to do some transformative projects throughout the city and the county, there's been some momentum in talking about preserving that as and there was a request months and months ago from a developer to rezone it. That's gone nowhere. That was withdrawn. That's been a little bit of miscommunication, intentionally or unintentionally, in the news media and various other places. There's no plans to develop it whatsoever. What the city did last night was adopt a resolution in support of keeping it as preserved green space, but the city, we don't have an active role in it. We don't have a legal interest in the property. So it was just a show of support. It was introduced by Councilman Andrews, but Luke Waddell has also expressed interest in that. He actually had an op-ed in the Business Journal a few weeks ago. If you guys want to Google that, green space preservation.
How far down Carolina Beach Road is it?
As soon as you make a right, if you were going from downtown.
That's a new Harris Teeter.
And not that, I was involved in litigation when it started, and I'm on the planning commission now, and you're right, that people didn't understand that before the planning commission, they withdrew their application. But they can redo it. I mean, it can come back. So what was done last night was the city standing behind, I don't know which one, conservative dealings with the property. The city doesn't own anything in there right now.
Right.
So,
They can rezone it, can't they?
No, not this, I mean, well,
well, they can come back.
it would have to go to
The city can rezone it.
No.
They wouldn't rezone it unless a developer brought a plan, and that would go to the planning commission first. So they would make a recommendation. And because it's in the city limits, if the developer did request to rezone it, yeah, eventually the city would have to weigh in on that. But in terms of having any authority to keep it as a green space, we don't own it, so we have no say so in the matter.
How much land are you talking about?
It is, I want to say
60.
thank you,
60.
but a lot of it's wetland, so it's not all buildable. I'd say probably two-thirds.
Okay.
Is it 1339?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So it's 6:35. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ron, second. Second by Dave. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.